Well, this evening we were invited to Portsmouth, Ohio to the SOLACE meetings, and you're going to find out what SOLACE means, how it's created. We've had a wonderful evening. I spoke for about 15-20 minutes about my life and testimony. And what happened afterwards is we were given the opportunity to interview the SOLACE founder. Her name is Joann Krohn. And we also interviewed the former chief of police, Chief Horner, who's actually running for sheriff in Scioto County. Miranda and I had a great time getting to, actually after speaking, we had 15-20 minutes, almost an hour or more. We actually spoke with everyone that was there and what they're doing personally to help SOLACE, how SOLACE has helped them, and they share with some of the grieving losses of their family members and friends that they know about. So stay tuned for this interview to find out more about drug addiction in southern Ohio and the hope that we found in Portsmouth we want to share with you. See you soon. Well, welcome everyone. We're still here at SOLACE down here in Portsmouth. I have the founder of SOLACE, Joann, with us, and tonight you're going to find out the origins of SOLACE and exactly why she's created this and why has the passion of Portsmouth and the community grown. And this has brought the attention of law enforcement, it's brought the attention of state legislation and even the governor, and across the country and the world, people are noticing what SOLACE is doing right here in Ohio. I'd like to thank you, Joann, for taking this time with us today. I realize that this is going to be quite emotional for you.
It always is.
And there's no way we can get away around this, but I'd like for you to explain to the listeners today why you created SOLACE and what that's about.
Well, SOLACE, the word SOLACE means to seek comfort. Mm-hmm. And it's an acronym for surviving our loss and continuing every day. Mm-hmm. And I started this group 2 years ago in memory of my son, Wes Workman. Wes was about 14 when he started drinking and doing drugs. And it progressed so fast for him because he was the type of person who had the addictive genetic makeup. So he was into a lot. He was getting in trouble. He was in detention and in house rehab when he was just 16. But when he was a senior in high school, I found out that he was not only taking Oxycontin, but he was selling it out of his house to pay for his addiction. He was getting this from a friend's older brother. And all this time, I did everything I could to help him and to stop him, but he was just kind of wild and headstrong, and he thought he was having fun, and he was not going to listen to anybody. And it ended up killing him. So with this moment of tragedy, you've taken something that the average person would just take their time of grief and want to be alone and go through the different 7 emotions that you go through, anger and pain and denial and whatnot. But you decided to do something more with this and create SOLACE. So what does SOLACE do? Okay. And I did go through the different stages of grief, and I think I still go through them. But the thing of it, what I have learned is I know I'm going to always grieve for the rest of my life. I'm never going to be the same person ever. I just have to get used to the new me, the new normal for me. And I have chose to take it and to turn it into something as positive as it can be. So what we do, we advocate, we educate the community about the drug problems that are here and all over Ohio and the United States. We share our personal stories of loss. We reach out to people who are struggling with addiction or have family members who are addicted. And we're just here for each other. Support. Other people know they're not alone. We want to eliminate the stigma that is attached to the words addiction and addict. My son was a high school football star, handsome, good-looking boy next door type. By looking at him, you would have thought he had everything in the world going for him. But he had a side that people
here in Ohio, depending on where you live, and in other states, Texas, California, Florida that I've been at, and across the nation, as you said, this is something people just don't want to talk about. They just want to brush it off to the side. From a faith-based point out, they separate sin from addiction, and they try and say, well, if you're addicted to something, that's just the way they're going to be. There's nothing to do. Let's just put them off in this other place. I can't do anything. I've heard many people on the Straight Forward page. I've heard in Texas and the rehabs that I've been to and elsewhere, where they would knock on the door of a clergy, or they would knock on the door of a family member and a friend, and everyone would say, I can't help you. I don't know what to do. Or maybe they just won't say anything at all. Go away, actually. If it's the nicest thing to say. And here, the interesting thing that you're doing is you're doing kind of what we're doing, is you're bringing not only addicts and family members and friends, those that are lost, some that haven't, and you're just trying to bring everyone together into a room to communicate.
Right.
So that you can be educated and understand their point of view, that while maybe, for some people, addiction is something that you're born into, that, you're going to be addicted if you start taking this. The medical field will say, you start taking this, you're going to be that way. That's what I was told, because my family history, that if I ever started something, it didn't matter what it was, I would be immediately addicted, because of the mother and the father and even the stepfather.
Likely true.
And then there's other people that they get into this because they don't have this communication at home or with their friends. They can be the smartest person, be a straight A student, 4.0 GPA, basketball, band, whatever it is that they do, and no one else knows that this is going on except for these few small people. And you and I know how this works. From the drug side of it, it's about people getting paid, because they're in these situations. I've talked to dealers before. They're talking about, well, what else can I do? And the same thing can be said for some of the addicts. They're like, how can I live without this? And then they start trying to get off the medications, all these physical problems go on, and so many things happen, they're left with nothing. But now here you come in, and you want to talk about what you do at schools and exactly what you do in the community first?
Right. Well, we go to high schools, and what I do, first of all, I have a video of my son playing football. He was a linebacker, and he led his team in tackles for 3 straight years. He was a little guy. He was like 6'9" or 5'9". 6'9" is huge. But he was small. He weighed 165 pounds, but he was a tough kid. He could hit somebody, he could tackle them, and they were down. So I have this really nice video that I show at the schools. First, I tell who I am and that my son has died, and then I show this right at the beginning of my talk. And I do that because I want them to see who he was. I want them to have a picture in their mind of who he was. Usually the girls are like, oh, he was so cute, and the guys are like, wow, he was tough. And they relate because he was like them. It's not somebody going in there, from law enforcement saying, if you do all this stuff, you're going to go to jail or prison, or somebody from a recovery center saying, these are all the statistics and this is what can happen. It's just a mother sharing the story of one of the most tragic things that could happen. And I tell his story, exactly what happened to him. He died from an accidental self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head while he was under the influence. He had bought this gun for protection because when people found out he was dealing drugs, they started breaking in to where he lived, looking for money, looking for drugs, for pills. So one night while he was under the influence, heavily under, and partying with friends, he got it out and he started playing with it in a discharge. He survived for about 36 hours after he shot himself. The bullet went completely through his brain. And, the doctors told me that if he would have survived, he would have been blind and paralyzed as well as brain damaged. So, at that point, I just had to find the strength in myself to love him enough to give him over to God, to say, God, don't listen to me, I'm his mother and I'm selfish and I don't want to lose him. I put him in your hands and you do what's best for my son, even if that means taking him to heaven.
Yeah, I can relate they literally sat in the ICU room and they removed it. And they said, well, they don't know how long she's going to last. She could last 5 minutes. She could last for days. And family were over here. I was about here. Mother was about right where you're at. And I watched it go from 92 pulse to 0 and flatline. So I understand what it's like to sit here and watch and know that because of things that have happened in their lives, because of addictions and things that, how could it not be in vain? I mean, that moment I got angry.
Exactly.
It's like when someone dies, you have this immediate moment where, oh my God, it's like your heart drops and you get upset and you get angry and you start sweating, or you get confused, you're like, I don't know what's going to happen, and you just scream. And memories, like you talked about playing the film, I'm quite curious, what are some of the students saying to you after you finally present some of these things? What are they saying?
Well, that it's such an emotional reaction from them. I mean, we're talking high school students, and sometimes I hear once they get to that age, you can't help them or you can't reach them. That's not true. That is so not true. I sit there and I look at them while I tell this story. And it doesn't matter if it's the tiny little freshman girl or the senior, guy with his football jersey on. They're sitting there crying as they listen. Even if they never met Wesley, they're seeing the reality of it. Mm-hmm. And they're seeing how a beautiful young person, his life can be just taken away. And not only how it destroys me, his mother, because I tell them, what my son did to me, I will feel this. I feel pain every second of every day for the rest of my life. No matter how long I live, I am never going to get over it. And I tell them that as a friend of somebody who might be using, if they lose them to a drug-related death, they're not just going to cry for 2 weeks and then get over it. I tell them how Wesley's friends still to this day go and put flowers, notes, little presents on his grave. I said, they grieve too. I want you to think about that. I tell them, if you make the decision to use drugs, you are selfish. Because it's not all about you. It's about everybody who cares about you. And they don't deserve to go through that. And I think that's put to them in a way that usually people don't explain it to them. Mm-hmm. But they come up to us afterwards. We invite them to meet us. And they line up, hundreds, and they take turns and they stand there and they walk up and hug us. I remember one young man, he came up and he just looked at me and said, I'm just so sorry, and he put his head on my shoulders and he cried, he sobbed, he soaked my shoulder. And I mean, here we are just having each other crying, and I'm thinking, my own sons don't hug me like that. It's a quick, pat on the back. When you've touched somebody, when it's a stranger, a young person, and they come up to you and they just wrap their arms around you and squeeze you, they felt something.
So where do you see SOLACE going in the future?
Well, right now SOLACE is expanding throughout Ohio. I look forward to cross the borders eventually. I think it's going to be something that can go clear across the United States. Just like AA or MAD, SOLACE is something that it has something to offer for everybody. Even if there's a community perhaps that the drugs hasn't hit that hard yet, start SOLACE now, keep it from happening, And there's strength in numbers, so the more people that come together under one name, I think the better, the stronger we're going to be.
I realize that so many times people take for granted community coming together and take for granted people taking action. But here today in Portsmouth, you're seeing community. And more specifically, you're seeing the act of love, a mother, as a Christian trait. And as a ministry, I have to say this is something that encompasses everything about Jesus Christ. Mm-hmm. The forgiveness of sins and the opportunity of having a better life. And showing others that you don't have to be this way anymore. There is hope.
It does not have to happen that way.
I mean there's plans, there's things that can be done, and that's what SOLACE is all about. It's not just about grieving, it's about
touch as many people as he could. Because despite his addiction and his troubles, he was such a friendly, charming, happy person, and everybody who knew him loved him. And he continues to reach out and touch lives. And I carry his message.
Death never has to be in vain. Solace is carrying that message of hope today. We'll be working more with Solace here in the future. There should be possibly more interviews and maybe an upcoming sharing of a meeting. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. We're currently at the Solace meeting down here in Portsmouth, and I have with us today Chief Horner, who's running for office here in Portsmouth coming up. After the board elections, I can tell he's quite excited about what's happening here, and we're just going to briefly talk about with him today about Solace and the state of drug addiction in Ohio, and is there change coming for Ohio? I'd like to thank you for coming here, Chief, and how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, thank you.
This weather has been
Gorgeous.
It's gorgeous, and I don't want that nasty golf ball size hail that I'm seeing online. The pictures is really crazy. But I just wanted you to briefly touch a little bit about your enrollment and involvement in Solace and the state of drug addiction here in Portsmouth, because I'm seeing this coming more into Chillicothe. I'm realizing this is looking more like how it was when I was back in Texas. It's like everything that's from the southern states is moving this way up here, and the criminal life that I saw as a child growing up in the South is more of reality here, and it's not something just in Cleveland and Columbus anymore.
It's obviously not an inner city problem, a crisis, I should say. I've been retired from law enforcement after 28 and a half years, and the last 10 years being chief of police, the 10 years prior to that, commanding the local drug task force. And I don't think at any point in my career have I seen the community mobilized like I've seen here in Portsmouth today. And the fact that we have mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, grandfathers, grandmothers standing up for a common objective, and that's fighting the epidemic of prescription drug abuse in the community.
What would you suggest would be like the next step besides the community involvement? I know that in Ross County we're talking about how to get funding for rehabs, and then I was talking to a couple others that are running for office. In Cincinnati, they were talking about the other options for programs and medications that can help you get off drugs, although we know a few actually cause more people to do more drugs. What are your thoughts on that today?
Well, clearly, if we're going to make a difference, it has to be a multidisciplinary approach. Clearly, in my opinion, that's based on 28 and a half years of law enforcement experience. The war on drugs, the classic war on drugs, is not working. What we're seeing is a community becoming a nation becoming addicted to prescription drugs. And until the federal government at the federal level in Washington, D.C., just recognizes that this is the number one issue, the number one epidemic facing the United States today, and takes appropriate action, provides us substantial funding, we won't see a change. We'll continue to see people die, and families will be devastated by prescription drug abuse.
Now, I've seen recently that, and I heard about this from other meetings, I knew this was something bigger in the bigger cities. People are resorting to the fact of going into hospitals and stealing medication. That just happened recently at Adena. There was theft, and we can tell there is a big epidemic. There was just that recent raid where over 220 people were arrested in Circleville alone in the area, and then Chillicothe has had a nonstop, almost every day someone's being arrested or something. And it's not the teenagers, it's not a certain race. I was looking at the latest statistics. There was a 75-year-old woman who was arrested that was doing drugs for the last 30 years, selling it to grandkids and great-grandkids. This is all across the board. It doesn't discriminate anymore.
Absolutely.
This is something that affects everyone. It affects the rich, it affects the poor, and there are solutions out there, but it's going to take a lot more work.
Well, clearly, Solace is playing an important part in that, and trying to bring a face to the problem of addiction and remove the stigma of addiction, and give an avenue or provide an avenue where people can openly talk about the addiction, whether it be personal addiction or addiction to family members. And I'm serving on their board of directors, and Joann Krohn is leading the director of the Solace group, and we're reaching out to various cities throughout the state of Ohio. And I think it's going to play an important part in change not only at the state level, local level, state level, and federal level.
That's one of the secrets that for anything to really work, when you get the community involvement, getting people to go past this stigmatism, and I talked about this in my speech a little bit, the stigmatism of these people, we just don't talk about them, they're just off on the side, they're outcasts, there's nothing we can do for them. But then when you start talking about it, you start realizing that this isn't just something that that person's dealing with. It's probably something right in your own backyard. It could be one of your friends, it could be your family, so on and so forth. And I realize when you start talking about a problem, it gets you brainstorming about different solutions. It gets you to be able to deal with the grieving process. I know the solace, and personally for me, the loss of a loved one is something I can relate to. And so many times, some people just look at things as statistics or not, and whatnot, but it's not. This is real life situations, and this is something that I realize the time has come where we need to take a stand. I believe solace is something that needs to go across the state.
I agree, and I think there's clearly a movement to make that happen in the state of Ohio. All of us, to some degree or another, we've got to quit hiding our heads in the sand, because whether it be personally being impacted by the prescription drug abuse problem, financially victimized by individuals supporting their habits, the cost of taxpayer funding, the cost of the hospitalization, Medicaid, the healthcare costs related to prescription drug abuse. We are all clearly impacted by the epidemic.
Well, I'd like to thank the Chief for stopping by. I know this is going to be something that many people need to get educated on. They need to wake up and figure out how to get action. So what are the first 3 steps you would say to mobilize someone to action?
The first 3 steps, obviously, is don't blame. Second, become part of the solution. The third is mobilize the community.
You hear that, guys? 3 steps. It's not that easy, but it's happening right here in Portsmouth. It can happen anywhere else in the U.S. Thank you so much.